What's going on, SEC football fans? Braden Gall here on SEC Football Live. Of course, brought to you by M.L. Rose. If you are in Nashville, make sure you check out one of those 7 great locations. Today, I want to dive into the scheduling, the 3 and 6 scheduling model that the SEC supposedly is going to go to. As a nerd of this conference who has loved this exercise for far too many hours and wasted far too many hours of my life, I love the idea of picking out the 3 teams for everybody in the conference and trying to make everybody happy. Now, the SEC, it's important to note before we get started, and all of these teams over here that are on your screen right now, got to know that the SEC could make adjustments to all of this at some point in the very near future. So this is just for now. There are plenty of things that look more difficult than others, that look disappointing, looking at you, Tennessee and Florida, of course. But by and large, I think the league did a pretty good job. So we're going to go team by team. We're going to work through all of these here, see what we like, see what we don't like. All right, let's start up at the top right there, of course, with Alabama. They're going to get, of course, Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. This is the one I would change as well. Once you change one, you got to change a bunch of them. But I would like to see Oklahoma maybe in there in that 3rd spot instead of Mississippi State. Obviously, Auburn and Tennessee is tough, but it's not Texas. It's not Georgia. It's not LSU, a great rivalry we normally get from Alabama. So I could have seen Alabama. If I'm an Alabama fan, you want Tennessee, you want Auburn. Do you care that much about Mississippi State more than you do some of the other ones? I think it was a great opportunity for Oklahoma and Alabama to create a new thing that Saban and Bob Stoops have been building for many, many, many years. So I think that's one that they could have done better. Of course, Arkansas, and they're going to play Missouri, Texas, and LSU. That is a great trio of rivalry games for Arkansas. I know Missouri's a little fabricated, but it fits perfectly. It's got to be on there. LSU, I know the battle for the boot and the whole deal. And, of course, Texas has to be on there. So, should Arkansas play South Carolina? Should Texas A&M play South Carolina? Should Missouri play South Carolina? I don't really know. I like that trio. I think Arkansas and Missouri, Arkansas, Texas, excellent. Arkansas, LSU makes total sense there. No complaints. Auburn right there, Alabama, Georgia, and Vanderbilt. I don't think you can do this one any other way, because if you're going to get stuck with Alabama and Georgia, and we all want those 2 games, I think you got to put Vanderbilt on there. It's weird, though, so I don't love that part. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt, of course, the crossover rivalry between the 2 divisions. So I don't know. I'm okay with that one, but I understand why they did it. If you're going to give them 2 hard games, you got to give them an easy one, quote unquote. The Florida Gators right here, Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. This is my one biggest complaint about the whole thing. Tennessee, Florida should be on this list. Kentucky has got Florida and Tennessee, and frankly, they should maybe not have either one of them. Obviously, Kentucky didn't have much of a balanced rivalry with either of those 2 teams, but Florida and Tennessee belong together. When I hear the CBS theme song, as a generation of the kid of the 90s and going to college in the 2000s at the University of Tennessee, when I hear that music, I immediately think Tennessee, Florida. That game should be on there. That was a big miss by the SEC, going, of course, for Georgia, South Carolina, and Kentucky. But otherwise, that's not super difficult for Florida. That's one of the more easier schedules each and every year to get those 3 teams. Georgia, you're going to get Auburn, you're going to get Florida, you're going to get South Carolina. No real complaints here. Auburn and Florida, 2 of their biggest rivals, period, full stop. Totally makes sense. And honestly, South Carolina, you got to give South Carolina they're like everybody's number 3. And so I think that's a decent little rivalry game there with Georgia. You got to think the Dogs are going to win that game most times if Georgia is playing up to their standards. But South Carolina, especially under Spurrier, gave Georgia some fits when they had Mark Richt. So no complaints there on that one. Kentucky, one of the toughest ones of the entire schedule there in the SEC, which is Florida, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Right now, I know Florida's down. Tennessee hasn't won a championship in a while, but South Carolina's pretty good. That's a really volatile collection of teams. But every single one of those teams is sort of, quote unquote, above Kentucky in the pecking order in the SEC. So that's a tough trio right there for Kentucky. Right now, if you had a great coach and you were surging, Stoops was a great coach. Maybe you can win a couple of those games, but the history says that against Florida and against Tennessee, those rivalries are extremely one-sided. So I think Tennessee coming off that list and Florida and Tennessee being put on, I think that's one where you could have maybe solved it. And then you have an extra game for Mississippi State we're going to get to. So maybe Mississippi State and Kentucky could have played a game. They play really fun football games. So maybe that would have been an excellent move there. LSU, this is, no complaints here. Arkansas, Ole Miss, and A&M. honestly, of the powerest of power programs. Talking Alabama, talking Texas, you're talking Georgia, you're talking LSU. The teams not necessarily Tennessee and Auburn and A&M, but even Oklahoma in that mix. This is probably the easiest of the group. Maybe the Sooners as well, but we'll get to them. I mean, Arkansas has been to one SEC championship game. Ole Miss has been to no SEC championship games, and A&M has been to no SEC championship games for obvious reasons. None of those programs have competed for national titles in the last 50 years since integration. I could argue with no Bama, no Florida, no Texas, no Georgia. Like, they're missing a lot of the best teams. So LSU schedule each and every year will have, I think, one of the easier three, but also when good, those are great rivalries. And the I-10 here between A&M and LSU, I think, is absolutely critical. It is such a great rivalry game. It goes back in other sports, decades and decades. The football on the field since A&M joined the SEC has been spectacular and dramatic. And, of course, you got the Hurricane Katrina element that sort of forced a bunch of people in Louisiana to move into Southeast Texas. And the cultures are so integrated right now that I absolutely love the A&M LSU rivalry. So that one I'm glad that they kept. Right here at the bottom at Mississippi State, and you can see all of these, of course, on the screen. Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and Alabama. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt makes sense to me. You put Kentucky on there, might make sense to me. I don't think giving Alabama, Mississippi State makes sense, honestly, for Alabama or for Mississippi State. So I know that they have history. I know that they've played a lot. I know that there's a rivalry there. I get all of that. Almost all of these teams have great rivalries. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure that's the one I would have kept. I think I would have given Alabama something a little bit more difficult, maybe given Mississippi State something a little bit easier. Let's move to the second half of the conference. Of course, schedule analysis here brought to you by M.L. Rose. Let's start at Missouri. And, of course, Missouri getting a very interesting combination. Arkansas, got to have it because I think the cultural dynamics of how they're tied together is really, really great. Obviously, Missouri and A&M have a history way back in the day in the Big 12, and 90-plus times they've played Oklahoma. So no complaints for Missouri. I love that trio. Makes perfect sense. Oklahoma, Missouri, Ole Miss, and Texas. Texas, obvious, has to be on the list. Missouri, I think, has to be on the list. Ole Miss, that's a weird one to me. Now, I love the idea of Ole Miss and Oklahoma when they're both good of building a rivalry. But this is where I would have liked to have seen Alabama. I think you could give Ole Miss something different here. And because, again, Ole Miss is traditionally not a power program. They already have LSU on their schedule. I'm not sure why, and Ole Miss is the next team we're talking about here. Mississippi State, LSU, and Oklahoma. I'm not sure why you give Ole Miss, a program that is not a national championship caliber program, at least historically, why you give them two national championship caliber programs every single year. You got to have the Egg Bowl, of course. So this is one where, in theory, I love the idea of Oklahoma going to the Grove every other year and vice versa. It sounds super fun. Sounds like a fun new thing. But I think Oklahoma would have been better suited playing Alabama. And I think you could take an Ole Miss team and put them against a Kentucky even, right? We're looking for another game for Kentucky because you do have to, when you change one, you got to change a bunch of them. It's a game of Jenga where one piece changes and it falls out. So that one's tricky. Maybe South Carolina, Ole Miss. I mean, that doesn't sound appealing, but it sounds more balanced to me. And I think you should try to create some sort of balance over time if you can. Speaking of South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Kentucky. That's pretty hard. Georgia and Florida is a tough ask for South Carolina each and every year. Kentucky's a pretty evenly matched game. In theory, South Carolina should win that game most of the time. We obviously know how much the rivalry has escalated underneath Sunglass Bowl with Stoops and Beamer. But honestly, that's kind of a tough draw for South Carolina, and I don't think it's all. I think when they're good, they can manage it. But even then, Georgia and Florida, when they're good, they are rolling. So that's a tough one for South Carolina. Tennessee might have the easiest of all the big programs here. Not obviously playing Alabama is a big one, but Kentucky and Vanderbilt, those are two rivalries, obviously. But as a fan, I'd much rather have a harder schedule and have Florida on there. If I'm an alumni, I want Florida on there. You can have Kentucky. You can play them twice every 7 years or whatever, and it's no big deal. But Vanderbilt, if you go Florida and Alabama, then you deserve Vanderbilt. Sorry, if you go Florida and Alabama, yeah, you deserve Vanderbilt. And so two tough ones, one easy one, very similar to what Auburn has to deal with. I'd be fine with that. I think Kentucky and Vanderbilt's, again, I think it might be the easiest schedule each and every year of all the teams that we're talking about here. Texas, this is a no-brainer. This is one of the only ones that has to be like this. Texas has to be Texas A&M, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. No excuses for anything else other than that. And you might argue that Texas, having to have these three rivalries on their schedule might be one of the driving forces for the 3-6. So I love the 3-6 model, by the way, for the record. I love all of this. I love that we get to look at these matchups each and every year. Texas A&M, this might be one of the hardest ones, just like Arkansas. If Missouri is your easy game each and every year, that's a hard schedule, man. You got Texas, you got LSU. That's two premier programs that compete and win national championships. Having Missouri as your number 3 team on your schedule, that's a big, big ask for Texas A&M. So I don't think they got any favors in this deal at all. Vanderbilt, of course, Auburn, Tennessee, and Mississippi State. Again, this is where you could have made it a little easier on somebody. Maybe it's one tough game, Tennessee, then you go Kentucky and State, right? I don't think the Auburn Vanderbilt thing is completely fabricated. It feels like. And again, why giving? I know Auburn needs an easier third opponent. Maybe Auburn and Mississippi State maybe should have been together. I don't know, but if I'm a Vanderbilt fan, I'm going, man, we got to play Auburn and Tennessee every year. But Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi State, South Carolina, that could have been good. Tennessee, Mississippi State, Ole Miss for Vanderbilt could have been pretty good. So again, some complaints here for a couple of programs. I don't love the Ole Miss Oklahoma game, even though I really like the idea of the game. I don't think that fits really well. I think you could have taken it a little easier on Vanderbilt. I think Tennessee, Florida is a big miss here on this for this conference. I think that's the one game you got to have on there, and they did not do it. So again, I think this is a huge step in the right direction. I think 9 conference games is absolutely what this conference needs. It is going to make for better schedules, more good football, better value on your season tickets or your road trips. It's going to be so much fun, and it's a great lineup of games. Is it perfect? No. If you do the exercise at home, though, which I've done way too many times and used up too many hours, it is very, very difficult to try to make everybody happy. So I think they took the most important rivalries and they saved those things throughout the course of the entire schedule for every team. They kept all the most important rivalries other than, again, Florida and Tennessee. Otherwise, make sure you check out M.L. Rose, 7 great locations all across the mid-state area. They got wing wars this season for college football fans and SEC fans. They're keeping track of who is eating the most wings on Saturdays. Buy 16, get 8 free. They got 2-for-1 beers. They got happy hour all throughout Saturdays. So it's a fantastic setup. It's a fantastic layout. And the wings are spectacular. The ranch is amazing. And, of course, you got those burgers and that craft beer menu, which is also really, really good. So make sure you check out the craft beer menu at M.L. Rose. That just about does it. I just love this stuff, so I felt the need to jump on here. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.